Well, how is everybody? Yeah? Sure look good. Last fall, I went up to visit my cousin Ozzy in Nunda, South Dakota. And I found him at Lars's Saloon. He was buying a hunting dog from Ivor Overski. And Ivor said, "This is the best hunting dog in the entire country. When you go out to the duck slough, you hide in the reeds, send this dog up to the water. It'll come back. If there's one duck there, it'll paw the ground once. 2 ducks, it'll paw the ground twice. 3 ducks, paw the ground 3 times, so on and so forth." Ozzy is quite impressed. He bought the dog on the spot, and he insisted that he and I go out to the duck slough that very moment to see this wonder dog at work. So we did. We went out there, we hid in the reeds, sent the dog up to the water. It came back in about 5 minutes and it had a stick in its mouth, and it was wagging its tail and it was shaking its head like it wanted to play fetch. Well, Ozzy immediately thought that Ivor Overski had pulled a fast one on him. There's nothing special about this dog. So we race back into town, and we go to Lars's Saloon. We find Ivor Overski, and Ozzy just starts going off on him. He said, "You told me this dog was really, really good. You told me that it could count the ducks and tell me how many ducks were there, but it didn't. We went out to the slough, and it's all it did was want to play fetch. It had a stick in its mouth and is shaking its head and wagging its tail. I want my money back." And Ivor Overski said, Ozzy, that dog didn't want to play fetch. He was telling you that there's more ducks out there than you can shake a stick at." Okay. Hey, if you're new here for the first time or visiting us from out of town, I want to welcome you. And the title of my talk is Simple Secret to Getting What You Want Out of Life. And for Unity Temple in the Plaza, and myself personally, I feel that life is basically simple. It is not convoluted, incomprehensible, or chaotic. It only gets that way when we begin to overthink things and when worry and anxiety and fear sets in. But life is basically simple. We follow the teachings of Jesus, but we don't do it under the context of traditional Christianity. We don't engage ourselves in the creeds and in the doctrines and the confession and heaven and hell and all that other stuff. But what exactly did Jesus come here to teach? And what can we learn to that so we can practice it in our lives? We call it practical Christianity. It's learning from the masters how we can make our lives better. And it really is quite simple. Each of us has 2 aspects to our being. We're human beings and we're spiritual beings. For each aspect, we have needs. As a human being, we need liquids, we need food, we need protection from the elements, we need other things that keep us safe and sound. From a spiritual viewpoint, we also have needs. We need to feel connected. We need to feel like we are united with something bigger than ourselves. We need to have the experience of love. We need to learn and to grow continually. That never ends. When we're learning, when we're growing, we're evolving, and we are alive. As soon as we stop, we begin to die. And the third thing is we need to give. It's just wired into our DNA system. The American Health Research Center determined that people who give discover that their blood pressure goes down, their self-esteem goes up, the stress goes down, and their life is actually expanded simply by giving, because it feels good to give. Now, the objective of life is to experience emotions. Emotions are everything, absolutely everything. We have a lot of thoughts, we do a lot of things, but everything reverts down to a simple emotion about how we feel. And our objective in life is to move forward, interact with different people, different things, different places, different situations, different circumstances, and from that interaction, pull a positive emotional experience, whether it be happy, whether it be love, whether it be peace of mind, whether it be serenity, whatever it is, we need to interact with the world around us in order to have the emotional experience. It has to be related to something, not just the world around us, but it can be relating to ourselves. I feel good when I feel good about myself. It can be relating to God, and that can bring a certain sense of faith or peace or serenity. But every positive emotional experience has to be the product of relating to something. So to get our needs met, we have to move into the world or move into the inner world and discover what it is that will create the positive emotional experience. Now, quite simply, when our needs are met, both on a physical level and a spiritual level, we're happy. When our needs aren't met, and everybody here knows this, when our needs aren't met, we're miserable. From a physical point of view, if you're hungry or you're thirsty and there's no way of providing for those needs, you're going to be miserable. If you feel your life's in danger, or if you're too cold or you're too hot, you're going to be miserable. Our needs have to be met. So that means getting something, getting some need met, once again, whether it's from the world around us or that inner world within us. Now this kind of sounds like a get life approach. I've got to get this, or I've got to get that. I've got to get this, or I've got to get that. And I remember there was a time in my life where my entire happiness was dependent upon my getting something. It's like when I was a teenager. Once I get my driver's license, everything is going to be okay. And then a little bit later, once I turn 21 and I get my legal ID and I can go to the clubs, everything's going to be okay. And then when I get married, things will be okay. When I get a new house, when I get a new job, when I get a new car, God, when I get a divorce, things will be okay. It was always getting, and it wasn't until I really approached my spiritual path and discovered that getting alone won't make us happy. It won't give us a peaceful lifestyle. It won't give us all those things that we have to have our needs met. Getting also requires giving. They're like two peas in a pod. It's a circulatory give and take. It's a flow. And we can get all we want, but if we don't give back of ourselves, and I'm not talking about anything in the material sense, but just of ourselves, we have to give to the world as we get from the world. And the key is to put in more to life than you take out. For instance, if you establish a relationship, and let's say this relationship is like the two of you coming together and you're going to share a savings account. And each of you on your own to put into the savings account whatever you want. So on a regular basis, you go down to the bank and you deposit something in your savings account. But then when you get the statement at the end of the month, you realize there's less money than there was before you made the deposit. Because the other person is taking out more than that person's putting in. But you keep putting in, you keep putting in, you keep putting in. And eventually, excuse me, God, that sounded horrible. Eventually, if the person comes around and you're both putting in more than you take out, life is going to be abundant, it's going to be prosperous, it's going to have things that go way beyond your wildest imaginations. But if it's not, if one person continues to put in, the other person just takes out, the relationship is going to crumble. Now, nature has a perfect way of displaying this. The Galilee, Sea of Galilee, has an inlet where several different rivers come into it, and it has an outlet where that water flows to the Sea of Galilee and it flows out. As a result, it is very, very prosperous when it comes to sea life. The water can be used for irrigation. It is healthy and it is fresh and it is alive. Well, right next to it is the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea has an inlet, but it has no outlet. Everything that comes, it gets, but it doesn't give back. And as a result, there's absolutely no life. There's absolutely no way the water can be used for anything because the salt content is so high. And it's very much like our lives. When we just get, and we just get, and we just get, what we're getting quickly loses its value. And we become stagnant. In the 4th chapter of Matthew. Nobody check me on this, please. That is just a wild guess. But I know it's in the Bible somewhere. Jesus is on the banks, and he's going to deliver a lesson. And people from all over the area come in. They're sitting on the hillside. 5,000 of them show up. And Jesus knows, as every preacher today knows, If you want to get people to come to church and you want to get people coming back, you give them free food. It just works. But Jesus hadn't planned on this big of a crowd. 5,000 people. He had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. What's he going to do? Well, he gave thanks to the good Lord for the food that he had. And the story is that as he was giving thanks, he called upon the people who had brought their food to the lesson. And he said, if you brought your food today, perhaps you can share with somebody that doesn't have any food. And if you don't have any food, as we pass the basket around, you take what you need. Well, at the end of the day, there was leftovers. There was more than the people needed. Miracle? Some people call it a miracle. He fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Wasn't a miracle at all. He just displayed what can happen when people, like us, work together. There's enough for everybody. In the Iroquois Nation, Native American tribe, they have a wonderful ritual. It's actually a rite of passage for their young people. When a child's about 5 years old, they have a big celebration. And all the people sit around in a circle, and they bring the 5-year-old, and they put the 5-year-old in the middle of the circle. They're celebrating that child moving into a later stage of childhood. Well, just like all of us, the child has needs. And as time goes on, the child will say, I'm hungry. And people will bring him food. Lots and lots of wonderful, delicious food. And as the child is eating, somebody outside the circle will yell out, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. And the child is taught to go find that person and share his food. And then the same thing happens with the drink. I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. And somebody outside the circle says, I'm thirsty, and the child takes some water. And then it gets colder, and the child says, I'm cold, I'm cold. And they bring the child a blanket. And then somebody outside the circle says, I'm cold, I'm cold. The child goes and finds that person and shares the one blanket that it has with it. And what this actually does, when the child receives, when he receives the food, receives the water, receives the blanket, he's very, very happy. Needs are being met. But when that child goes out to find somebody that has the same needs, and he gets to serve that person, he experiences the same measure of happiness in giving that he does from getting. And that is the secret of life. Giving is just as rewarding as getting. Now you might think, well, what do I have to give? I'm not talking about money, but you have everything in the world to give. You have an abundance of love, you have abundance of peace, you have abundance of happiness and joy, even of healing for other people. And once that circulation starts going, that flow starts going, you give out, you receive back. It's just like breath. You breathe in air, then you breathe out air, and it's a beautiful, perfect system of circulation. It's the same with giving. I learned a practice not too long ago that has really changed my life. And when I'm feeling sad or depressed or angry, burnout, whatever it might be, I will get up and I'll go someplace where there's a lot of traffic. Bus stop out front. Whether it's automobile traffic or pedestrian traffic, doesn't make any difference. Someplace where there's a lot of traffic. And I'll sit at the bus stop, say, or I'll sit behind and look out my window. And as the cars go by or as the people go by, I will simply say, may you arrive home safe. Doesn't make any difference who they are. Some of the cars are loud, some of the people are obnoxious, some people throw trash out the window. May you arrive home safe. And that's based on the fact that once every 13 minutes in this country, somebody dies in an automobile accident. People just like you and me, they get out of bed in the morning, they prepare themselves, they go off to do something, never suspecting that this is the last day of their life on this earth. While we're here this morning for an hour, 5 people will unsuspectingly die in an auto accident. Now, I don't think there's a whole lot I can do to change that, but it does make me feel good to offer forth my greatest prayer, to offer forth my greatest blessing, to offer forth my greatest affirmation to whoever goes by, may you arrive home safe. It feels good. Within 2 or 3 minutes of doing that, whatever problems I was bothered with before have completely vanished. And after a while, if the traffic gets heavy, it almost becomes like a mantra. And I don't look at the car, I look through the car, into the window at the driver, the people in the car. I make it real. People just like you and me, going somewhere, doing something. May you arrive home safe. That's giving. And it's getting. One continuous circle. So as we move into meditation, just for a moment, I'd like you to continue to look forward and focus on somebody that you can see, whether you know them or not, and just bless them with, may you arrive home safe. 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 May you all arrive home safe. There's just something wonderfully beneficial about allowing yourself to merge into the world and offer a blessing that is universal for everybody. We'll now move into meditation.